effort, but effortless effort very important. If your mind is interfering too much, then it becomes about you on paper.
Do you think creativity is a mystical, spiritual process?
If we look at any aspect of life, whether it is the subject of God or human beings or nature, so I think the creative act and the spiritual attitude is intermingled. And it's very interesting, people say, oh, spirituality is different, materialism is different.
Yeah.
I said, how come a man like Steve Jobs, who was such a spiritual person, created the world's largest company?
Yeah.
You know Bhimsen Joshi's town we are in. And I remembered what Joshi ji had said. He said, मैं जहाँ हूँ कोई संगीत नहीं है. अगर मैं नहीं हूँ, when a connection is made between two people through books, it's always a sacred connection.
उम्र भर गालिब यही भूल करता रहा. उम्र भर गालिब यही भूल करता रहा. धूल चेहरे पर थी और आईना साफ करता रहा. I couldn't think of a better way to start today's podcast. For those who might not understand Hindi or Urdu, the sher that I recited in the beginning was explaining about how Ghalib, Mirza Ghalib, the most celebrated poet, how he was talking about his realizations, that he always, one of his realizations was that he spent his lifetime in cleaning the mirror, whereas the dirt was actually on the face. And this is exactly the aspect that we will explore in today's podcast, which is how to really shine your inner world, how to look at ourselves more than blaming the outside world or circumstances for anything and everything that goes wrong or disturbs us. Today we have the honor and privilege of having a celebrated author with us, Pranay, who is also a deep seeker on the topic of spirituality and mysticism. Thank you so much, Pranay, for the privilege of being with us today and exploring creativity from a spiritual point of view.
It's a real distinct pleasure to be here, Chandana, and that's indeed a beautiful way that you began it. And you are such a creative person yourself. And I'm very pleased that we are in the great cultural city of Pune doing this, the city of Ganpati ji. What better? Auspicious beginnings.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So, Pranay, today I was hoping that we can sort of uncover a lot of the beautiful teachings of Hinduism that you bring with you and beyond, to show us how we could look at spirituality and creativity in a connective and actually sort of a way in which both these aspects really merge together. So that'll be the exploration. Another thing that I would love to share with the audience is how I got introduced to you. I was actually at the Chetna bookstore in Mumbai, and I came across your books. And over there were two books which I picked up. I think one was on the Gita and one was on Kabir. And what really stood out for me was the simplicity in which you expressed a lot of these big ideas. And I just suddenly found it so relatable, as if, oh, this is something so big, but as if I grasped it. And literally there, I picked up those books right away. And coming back, I said, I have to find the author of these books. And then began my quest to find you. So today is indeed a very special day to have you and to have all of your work with us and for us to learn from all of your seekings and findings. So really thank you.
That's so interesting you mentioned that. Chandana, I always feel that when a connection is made between two people through books, it's always a sacred connection,
Truly.
And, a book is a book. So it's a sacred connection. And the fact that I can relate to readers who take it to another level, and we begin an interlocution. It was so interesting that last year we couldn't do our segment because you had to go to the US, and that time I was busy. But I think that's divine destiny, really.
It is. I really believe so much that today to be led towards you is really that's divine destiny, and I think a perfect place for us to begin. So let's get into it with spirituality and creativity. Both deal with accessing deeper unseen realms. Do you think creativity is a mystical spiritual process?
It's very challenging and a beautiful question, and a very significant question. Just a second ago we were talking about Ganpati ji, right? The city of Pune, Dagdushet Mandir,
Yes.
our Ganesha. Now, Ganesha, in a way, exemplifies the idea of creativity, new beginnings, right? But at
And
the same time, playfulness,
yes.
Ananda, the state of Sat Chit Ananda. So I think these are the things which really connect the creative domain with the spiritual domain. And I think in Indian thought in general, we've always had a deep connection between the creative act, creation, and mysticism or spirituality.
Yeah.
Now, for example, we talk about the Natraj, right? Now, generally, we think about the Natraj as doing his Rudra Tandav, the destructive, right, as the destroyer, but also the Ananda Tandav, right? So, out of Ananda, he creates through his dance the rhythm of the galaxies and the universes and the multiverses. So the act of creation and the cyclical act of creation and destruction comes through the divine bliss of creativity. So in Indian thought, God's creativity is inherent in every moment. It is not static. It is dynamic. It is not like God created a universe and then rested, right? It is a constant process. I mean, every sunrise and every sunset, the beauty of it
Yes.
is creativity.
Is.
So I think, sometimes we think creativity is a particular act that we do reference. I mean, you're a musician, right? You're a musician. And that's one aspect of, but I think the creative attitude, the blissful attitude. Again, we have the example of Krishna, right? Now, Krishna is the essence of Leela, right? Playfulness. So, God himself or herself, or Prakriti, or the Garbhodakshi Vishnu through whose navel trillions of universes are being born, right? Dreaming the. So, I think if we look at any aspect of life, whether it is the subject of God or human beings or nature. Now, a good example from Vedanta is honeybees. Honeybees, you and me may think that they're not doing something creative, but they're producing honey.
Yeah.
They're producing nectar. But look at the way they're doing it. It seems like they're doing it in a state of ananda, right?
Yeah.
They're not harming the flowers from which they're taking the nectar. They are working in teamwork and they're creating something beautiful. So I think the creative act and the spiritual attitude is intermingled
Yes,
together.
yes. In fact, you said something, and everything, you're pointing towards the richness, the natural, the organicness of nature, in which, like a tree, its dharma is to produce fruit, flowers, and the sun has to rise, has to set, with the same with the moon, and all these elements of nature. I somehow wonder why, as human beings, do we feel stuck and blocked when it is our nature to create? Because as humans, the deepest longing we hold within us is to actually create something that other animals can't do. Whether it's the lions, tigers, or the cows, or any animal, I think that we have this inherent ability to create. And yet today, we seem so stuck by so many things in feeling blocked and unable to experience our creativity. And that's why I think today's talk would be so significant to understand different aspects that come to us of our own ancient wisdom and how we can use that as a tool to actually access those aspects within us and probably just have some sort of wisdom in how we can approach things. So today is special. And Thank you for sharing the link between creativity and spirituality.
Thanks, Chandana. On that note, there's a saying in Vedanta, you can't teach the fishes how to swim in the ocean. They know it by themselves. You don't
Yes,
need to teach the birds on the trees how to sing. You
yes,
see? So I think it's about freeing the mind a little bit.
completely.
We get attached to reward, results, etc. I think it comes back to the Gita. So if you work with surrender
Yeah.
and you work freely, freeing the mind,
I
then you're
think,
naturally creative.
correct. I feel, people feel blocked. They feel that they shouldn't be confident or that they need some outside support. And that's why I think today's conversation will be valuable in how to tune in to ourselves
To
and
our
find
natural
that to our
selves.
natural
Yeah,
selves
be
and
natural.
yes, and find our own hidden powers. I
So you're
think
saying that if you find the naturalness, then as a byproduct, you will automatically be creative.
yes, just the way you said the birds fly, nobody needs to teach them how to fly. The bees know how to make honey. The trees know how to make fruit. The sun
And in a,
knows.
in a vaster way, like you said, the sun moves,
Yeah,
the galaxies are revolving,
yeah, yeah,
Everything is moving in its own way, in a creative way,
yes.
right? So wonderfully said. Yes, please.
So, Pranay, many mystics or spiritual seekers describe their experiences beyond language. Yet, as a writer, you bring these ideas into words. So, what are the challenges involved?
It's interesting. It is a contradiction, actually. But I really start from a place where I feel that the real language of mysticism, the real language of God, is intuition, not intellect.
Mm,
It is silence,
mm,
not sound.
mm,
Right? It is behind the scenes. So I think the one has to tap into the intuitive parts of oneself, and I think intuition gets tapped when we silence the noise of the mind a little bit.
mm.
So I think the words that come on paper are only a means to express, but actually the act starts with getting in touch with your intuition. You know, through that intuition or whatever you call sadhana, smaran, remembering our unity with God, that is the birthing ground of at least the topics I write on, right?
And do you feel guided that once an idea comes to you, do you feel guided in how to express that? Because I found that you're able to bring a very complex, big idea into very simple words that becomes very easy for those who may not know as much on the topic. So, does this simplicity just come, or do you work towards really simplifying?
So, it's interesting that you asked that because I find this concept of effort, but effortless effort very important in the sense
Mm,
that, yes, a lot of ideas come into mind,
mm,
but you have to let them flow through you. If your mind is interfering too much, then it becomes about you on paper. Whereas because we are dealing with slightly vaster subjects than me, the I mean, I can give you a lot of examples from Indian thought, but it was very interesting to know about one of my icons who is the famous classical composer called Bach, right?
yes.
Johann Sebastian Bach. Now he's a person whose music has survived through the centuries, and in fact they say even rock and music is so influenced by him. So somebody used to ask him, Meister Bach, how do you bring such grand music through you? I mean, how do you manage it? He says, no, I do nothing. I just have these fingers. I have 10 fingers. You also have 10 fingers. I just allow God to play through me. So I feel you're a classical musician. I feel a Guru Haridas exemplifies it to the highest degree. I'm reminded of that story where Akbar told Tansen that you have to be the greatest musician who's been born. So Tansen said, actually you know nothing because you haven't seen a real musician. So they actually went to Vrindavan in disguise,
I've heard that.
and
Yeah.
when Akbar saw Haridas ji, his entire illusions was shattered,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
And he saw that Haridas is a pure vessel, a pure channel. In the same way that Krishna plays through his flute, the flute is just a vessel. or he played through Arjun, and Arjun became a vessel to fight in the stand up and fight Arjun. And he fought. So, whether it's the act of war, the act of creativity, writing a song, if you can become an instrument of the Lord, of the greater, of the vast, I think that's
So, Pranay, actually, what holds us back from this? Because I think what you're saying, we all instinctively know that this is so true. If only, and I think perhaps most of us in our moments of when we've just surrendered, when we've just made ourselves really light and easy, we've experienced that. That there has been something beyond us and certainly beyond our mind, which has allowed things to just flow in such an appropriate, beautiful way. The biggest problem, I think, is why are we not able to access this state regularly? What holds us back?
I find it very interesting, Chandana, because I know where you're coming from. You're a singer, you're a classical musician, and I know where you're coming from. In some moments, you feel that you're lost.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, Bhimsen Joshi's town we are in. And I remembered what Joshi ji had said. He said, मैं जहाँ हूँ, कोई संगीत नहीं है. अगर मैं नहीं हूँ, I am paraphrasing it. I
yes.
think he said it beautifully in Marathi also.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly
Yes.
what he said,
Yeah.
but am I wrong? I mean,
No.
so I found what he said encapsulated it. It's the मैं, it's the I,
The ego,
with all our
yeah.
attendant problems.
Yeah.
So the ego, I mean, usually we look at ego as ahankara, as like arrogance. No. Ego also means you're carrying all those worries on your head, you're carrying everything else. Yes, life goes on. But that doesn't mean that you carry everything mental with you, the baggage.
Yeah.
So I think it's about dropping that baggage. And it all starts with this illusion. Now, Arjun on the battlefield was not being arrogant. He was worried. And Bhagwan told him to drop that worry. So that is also a way in an ego. We think our problems are the biggest in the world.
Yeah. Do you believe that spirituality or spiritual wisdom is something to be learnt? Or is it simply about remembering something that we've forgotten?
Remembering is a beautiful way you said it, smaran. And it's interesting that all the scriptures, whether it's the Yog Vashisht Maharamaya, the Ashtavakra Gita, the Vedanta, spiritual literature of the West and the East, whether you go into Buddhism or Zen or anything, they'll always emphasize that what you call the Buddha Dhatu, the state of enlightened presence is already there. So a child, we have to unlearn a lot of what we've learned. Now, in this context, I'll give you an indirect answer which answers it. Rabindranath Tagore, very creative person, very spiritual person. He used to interact with the bowels, he used to interact with people of all different. And his songs are so beautifully spiritual, his writings are so beautifully spiritual, Gitanjali. And now, he used to go out on his boat once in a while in the river. And in his aloneness under the moonlight, just the river, he used to write. Now, what happened once was, strangely that day, no writing was coming. And he didn't know, he was surprised at himself because he's highly productive. And there was a lamp burning in his boat. He went and put off the lamp. And he says that the moonlight flooded the boat.
So beautiful.
You see? तो हमारे अपने lamps ही जल रहे हैं.
Yeah.
We've burned so many of our own lamps that we forget the divine light,
Yes.
which is always shining.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we sometimes obscure that light with our artificial lights. And Tagore says that night he felt a different bliss and he produced something which to him was very meaningful that night. So I think it's a little bit about that.
Yeah. Beautifully put. Spiritual traditions emphasize silence, stillness, going inwards. But storytelling or the work that people do, that requires expression and a connection with the outside world. So, how do you balance this in your creative process? Or how can people actually not fear that if they disconnect from the world, if they start to explore their spirituality, I think that a fear is that they may not be able to connect with the outside world then, or they might just move too far away from it. So, what are your thoughts on this kind of a worry?
If you look, let's look at life. Life has contradictions. Okay, now you have a full day of work. After you need the night to relax and rest. So it's a tension of opposites. Now, just because you had energy during the daytime to do something with full gusto in the material world, going into the office, that doesn't mean at night you don't retreat and relax. So it's about energy, and expression is about energy, right? But to gather that energy, to be truly expressive, to be truly creative, you need to go into a space which is nourishing. And the way I'd like to describe it is, I like to use these kind of words, energy,
Yeah,
consciousness,
yeah.
because these are real. If we function with good energy, everything happens. The way I look at it is that the stillness that you talked about, or the state of dhyana, the state of meditativeness, the state of retreat, the state of spirituality, mysticism, is about recharging your battery with the universal charger. You see, otherwise we are working on our own steam.
Yeah.
But हमारी battery तो limited है, खत्म हो जाएगी. So it's about reconnecting that, your electric vehicle to that charger.
Right.
And
right.
then God, they say God functions through you, or existence functions through you.
Yeah.
Or, a lot of people used to ask the Buddha that, what is the difference between you and us? You're always so blissful, even when you're preaching to so many people, you're never tired, you're never this and that. He says, the difference is that you have forgotten that you all also have access to the Buddha out. And I know that I have access to the Buddha out. So if we remember that there is a higher source which is running everything, and the way to do it is internal. We can only go up to Mars, right? We cannot go beyond that. But internally, you can travel light years away into that eternal source. But you have to be a little relaxed within, restful within.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I found something within my books, by a very famous Buddhist tantric, Vajrayana Buddhist called Tilopa. And I just want to read you these lines because I feel that is a good way to reconnect with that energy which is needed for expression
Yes.
and work.
That would be great.
So Tilopa says, don't recall, don't imagine, don't think, don't examine, don't control, rest. Now it's a strange thing. Don't do anything. But he's saying that just leave everything behind. What you talked about, Ghalib, in the beginning.
Yeah.
That don't be so concerned about so many things.
And what's happening is we are polishing the outside. We are not realizing that it's within something which is holding us back.
which
And
is-
if you don't go within, how will you ever even connect with that? How will you find what is disturbing you, what is getting in the way?
So, on that note, another creative person, Michelangelo, right?
Yeah.
So, in fact, when he was doing one of his famous statues, he quite didn't know why he's not able to create the statue. Okay, it was not coming in the way he wanted. But then he went into his own. He was a spiritual man, and he went into his own way. He went into his what we can call dhyana or meditation. Then he had an intuition. He said, "Okay, so far I've been trying to build a statue." But then he said, no, let me do one thing. Let God's hands function through me. God's hands are invisible, we can't see. They have to work through human beings' hands, right? So what he did was, he spontaneously just started chipping away at the marble. And what came out was one of the greatest statues that was ever made. Because he connected to that higher source, and the expression required came out on its own. And you'll notice that it's not imagination. If you look at the greatest people in history, a lot of them with great thoughts and great energy, it seems that they're always connected to a higher energy. And having good energy is so important for anything we do. And I think having a good energy, Chandana, and the kind of energy you have, one of bliss, one of ananda. So I think ananda, see, God is described as Satchid Ananda. Now, whether you believe in a God as a personification of God.
Can you explain Satchitananda for those who don't know?
Satchidananda. So, everything starts with truth.
Truth. Such is truth.
And truth is something which cannot be contained. That's the idea of truth in Hindu thought. If you're established in a state of truthfulness, you move to higher consciousness. Right? Chitta. So, Satchidananda. And eventually, everything is about ananda, the blissful state.
So which means you start from the truth, you bring it to consciousness,
Yeah.
and that leads you to the bliss which comes from
Yeah.
just surrender. And
But the beauty is what I feel, that even if you begin with Ananda, I think good consciousness and good and truth
you
automatically
can find your
follow.
way the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's sometimes you can put it in reverse.
Yes.
So I think one thing we can do is for that expressiveness to have the state of Ananda, really.
Many of your writings touch upon altered states of awareness. Do you believe that shifting one's perception is essential for creativity? And also, uh, is there some specific practices that you do, that you engage in, be it meditation, deep contemplation, or something else that allows you to access a more expanded state of awareness? Because I think this awareness that you talk about is something that we all wish to access, but are not sure how to develop that more sharpened sense of awareness.
Yeah, Chandana, I'd like to answer this very nice question with an example. You've heard of the Naths, right? Matsyendranath, Gorakhnath.
Although I won't say I know much about that, but
Yeah, I mean it's an endless domain. There's always it's a world in itself. But very interestingly, Matsyendranath ji tells Gorakhnath ji as one of the first principles of yoga to have a state of wonder. So he says wonder is the foundation of yoga. And I think when you talk about higher awareness or a shift or a change of awareness, it is just a slight adjustment without even going into too much practice. It's a knack, it's an attitude. So it's such a beautiful teaching I found. Have a state of wonder towards things. You see, wonder expands the mind. What we call a mind-blowing experience. You're suddenly in this wondrous sort of a state. And there's so much to wonder about. Each moment, each breath, you can wonder about. You know, it takes me to the story about, again, Buddha. Somebody asked him that, you've become a Buddha. How did you become a Buddha? So Buddha, as usual, he didn't answer directly. He said, you go and ask everyone in the village what they want and come in the evening. So the person came back in the evening and Buddha said, okay, what do people want? He said that, somebody wants more money, somebody wants more land, somebody wants to serve society, even a good cause. Somebody wants to, take care of cows. Somebody wants to be a good parent. He says, did anyone tell you that they want to be a Buddha? I said, no. He says, yeah. I mean, we talk about Buddhism as a state of no desire. But the Buddha wondered about that higher reality. So it is that sense of wonder, awe. Through that, great tasks can be accomplished.
so which means you're saying that once you actually get curious, you feel that interest in something, that really allows you to become very aware.
Yes.
That allows you
itself.
to become attentive.
Attention. You use the beautiful word. J. Krishnamurti used to use the word attention. And we've become so dull, but the whole universe is so glorious.
Yeah.
I mean, in Albert Einstein, a scientist, right? When we talk about science, first face which will come is Einstein, right? In a way.
Yeah.
Now, Einstein used to wonder. He had his thought experiments.
Yeah.
So in a way, in his own way, he was his own karma yogi.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But the spark of it, the bedrock of it, that's why you'll notice that innovators or people who come up new with something, they have that quality. Whether it is Nikola Tesla or someone like that.
Elon Musk.
Yeah, so Musk, for example. I mean, there's so many examples in every field.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting, people say, oh, spirituality is different, materialism is different.
Yeah.
I said, how come a man like Steve Jobs, who was such a spiritual person, created the world's largest company?
Yeah.
Apple.
Yeah. Yeah.
Companies come and go, but Apple has stood the test of time and he's done it.
Yeah.
Again, we come back to Neem Karoli Baba. You said, how does it happen? Now, one is what you can do yourself. And there is something called divine grace also. I mean, when when Ramdas, who was a Harvard professor, he'd been thrown out of Harvard, and he was an authority on consciousness, and he had co-created LSD also. First time he had gone to meet Baba was through another Swami, and he didn't know what Baba is about at all. And his mother had passed away a few months back, and he came to Baba. And he didn't touch his feet. So Baba said, Idhar aao. He called him. He's a translator, Mr. Shah was there. And Baba looked at his eyes and he said, तुम कल रात को उस झील के किनारे खड़े थे और तुम अपनी माँ के बारे में सोच रहे थे. And he described how the mother had a spleen problem and how she passed away. And what Ramdas says is that in 1 second, his state of consciousness got altered. But that is divine grace. So, but divine grace also happens, I feel, because Ramdas used to wonder about things.
Yeah.
He had a thirst. We call it mumukshu, actually. So Yog Vashisht Maharamayan, which is a beautiful, people are surprised. It's the second largest text in the world. Okay, after the Mahabharata.
Wow.
And it is Ram's journey through being a spiritual seeker. Okay, as a boy. And what great rishis like Vashisht and Vishwamitra and others taught. And their intellectuation, their talk. So it's about having a thirst.
Yeah.
So if you have the thirst, then you will find.
This is so significant because I think really, again, so beautifully put, thirst. I feel that in today's society, we are becoming so used to the world of ready-made that everything is so easy. We are just becoming lethargic.
Click of a button.
Everything is click of a button.
You don't wonder?
No, we don't wonder.
Asha, you are lost in entertainments?
Yeah.
If you
Yeah,
look,
complete
we're getting more and more
distractions.
lost.
Completely.
I got scared, Chandana, yesterday. I just noticed I was getting into the aircraft and in the first section, these 6 people sitting and 5 out of them were on mobiles before
Everybody, wherever you look.
children. So we have to understand that we are not evolving consciously.
Yeah.
So evolution of consciousness is very important. That's why we have to make space. So when I was talking about dhyan and all that, it's not just about, it's some mystical thing. It allows you to get away from that.
Yeah.
It makes a space for you in practical life.
Correct.
That's why it's important also, if you think about it. Otherwise, where is the space to escape from all
There
these
is nothing.
distractions?
It's just one thing. And then it becomes so boring for people that to sit alone becomes like, I get bored. People can't sit alone. It's so uncomfortable to them.
अभी तो कोई मेरे को बोल रहा था वो हिमालय में गया था. He saw one person over there. That guy is also gone for a retreat, but mobile चालू है because network मिल गया. So I said, यार escape कहाँ है?
Escape ही नहीं है.
It's that old story about this hermit who used to sit under a tree. It's a story from Japan. So the hermit needed nothing in life, very simple and all that, Zen. So one day he had gone out somewhere to the forest to get some fruits and stuff like that. And he came back and he saw someone else sitting under the tree. And he got so angry. So the guy said, oh, acha, you're still attached to this tree.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we lose ourselves in these attachments.
Yeah. So Pranay, are there any tips or ways in which one could get into a meditative state, or just how could they access that quietness with which they can sort of calm down and allow these different areas which they are unable to access to have them accessible?
It's very interesting because today's world is very challenging unless one has a very big, ambition to sit down, and not everybody has that willpower, right?
Yeah.
We don't live in a very serene, forested area where that quietness comes naturally. That stillness, that quietness comes naturally. So it's very interesting. There's this Buddhist meditation. It's called the smile of the tiger. Okay. Why I want to share this with you is because I think we need to encourage people that meditation is not a boring process. If we can get immediate happiness also out of it. What we were talking about, the state of Ananda. Now, the smile of the tiger is that you shut your eyes and you visualize that within yourself there's a smile. And you'll realize that within yourself, no matter what problems you're going into, if you close your eyes and visualize a smile at the center of your being, you realize that you are in a natural state of Ananda. Actually, that is our natural state. a state that they say a child is born into. Yes, a child is crying, but beneath the crying and beneath the worries of the world, there is a lot of blissfulness, which is the basis of creation. So the creative act coming out of that. That's one. It's called Smile of the Tiger. Second is this great Buddhist master called Atisha used to teach, right? He had founded the Kadampa path in Tibet. But he came from Bengal. And what happens is these meditations, they are interlinked, in this subcontinent of ours. So from our Sanatan, from Buddhism, from Jainism, there's a lot of richness of these and there's a big overlap also. Now, Atisha used to say something very different from our motivational talk. Now, if you attend Tony Robbins or something like that, you'll always find, okay, pump yourself.
Yeah,
be
do
happy.
it, do it.
But positive thinking. But Atisha's meditation I find very interesting. You know what he used to say? He used to say, try this. When you breathe in, like we are generally told, breathe in positivity and breathe out negativity. Atisha used to say, when you breathe in all the sorrows of the world. And when you breathe out, automatically you'll breathe out Ananda. It's a very interesting thing. I mean, let's try it together. Actually, he doesn't mean other people's sorrows also. It's, in a way, it's your own. So, you're breathing in the world's sorrows, worries, everything. And then just let go. Exhalation just is a let go. And in that let go, you're completely relaxed. You know what it's doing? That's karuna. That's compassion. The word karuna, compassion, in a way you're being compassionate to the world, but actually that itself is healing you.
Yeah, I think it allows you to step out of your constant me, my troubles, my worries. It just expands our own humanity, that we have love, we have compassion.
Beautifully put.
within
You
us.
just said
Yeah.
prema, karuna, sat, all these are the highest values. And they're universal values with different names in different parts and different languages. Right, in Sanskrit there's one word, in Pali the word is slightly different, things like that. But the essence is the same, right? As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, the great mystic, Vivekananda's master, he used to say, beneath the skin is the flesh, beneath the flesh is the bone, and within the bone is the marrow. But inside the marrow, there's the substance called prema, love. So we need to go a little deeper.
Don't we have a theory of this, the Panchakosha theory?
Yes.
Which is the 5 layers of the body, and the innermost subtle kosha is the Anandamay kosh, which is again
Said it
just
so beautifully. And
intelligent.
the uncanny part, you just gave me goosebumps. Neuroscience, now there is a brain chemical called anandamide,
Wow.
which is crazy. I mean, imagine. I mean, now you have these symbols being used in modern science. Now you tell me, why would we talk about the Nataraj statue? Why would the CERN particle accelerator, where they found the so-called God particle, why would they have a Nataraj at the entrance? Right? Because the Nataraj talks about quantum physics and the rhythm of creation. And coming, now they say light, both wave and particle. Contradictions exist. So Shiva is Shiva and Prakriti, Purusha and Prakriti. Opposites. The clash happens and creation happens. But that happens through blissfulness, through a blissful act in Tantra, right? That way. So where were we? We were talking about how karuna for others and how we breathe in the world's sorrows and automatically we'll feel relaxed. The third meditation that I was coming to is really got to do with, all spiritual paths in the world say that the light of God exists within you. One way is to look at it metaphorically. Another way to look at it is that the blueprint of God also exists within us in miniature. You can call it the Atma, you can call it, that eternal abiding quality of godliness. So a good meditation is always to contemplate light within. And according to the Naths, you can contemplate your light on this right here as a blue light. If you concentrate on blue light, even for a minute, you will feel a sense of connectedness. It's very interesting because in Indian parlance, we've always used the deep color blue
Mm,
to represent the highest realities.
mm,
Okay, whether it is Ram, Krishna, so on, or Kali, for example, right? Existence itself. And if you
mm.
look at photographs of the universe, it's mostly dark, it's mostly of that quality. So, to relax also, like in the womb of the mother, it's a darkness, right? Where the
Yeah,
child is relaxed.
yeah,
When you sleep at night, you need darkness.
yeah.
So, to mentally relax yourself and to spiritually go into that space quickly, concentrate not on a very bright shining light, but on a slightly deep bluer light. Now, you can't concentrate on black light because that won't be light.
No.
That's darkness.
Yeah.
You see what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So, the next best thing.
Yeah.
Now, in our tradition, Krishna, the word Krishna comes from karshan, attraction. So everything is supposed to revolve around. So you'll notice in galaxies and nebula, everything revolves around something. So you can say that everything revolves around the light of being, of God. So, good way. If you have an Ishtadev, of course you can concentrate on an Ishtadev. But if you want to concentrate on something which is very universal and which does not condition you with any belief, just take the idea of a blue light right here. So, a lot of people talk about concentrating on the Agya chakra, and a lot of people talk about concentrating on the Guru chakra. But sometimes with the Agya chakra, what happens is it can lead to a bit of confusion because the thoughts can trouble it. And it needs a little guidance. But a good way is right around here. Just a little top of the forehead. Concentrate on that blue light and you'll feel naturally connected to that divine blueprint of that divine light. And God's language is both light and darkness. It's very interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Light
Is it-
and darkness, like, sorry, you were saying.
No, it's about the paradox of the opposites.
Yes.
Everything is opposite, night and day, up
So
and
if there
down.
was no darkness, light would have no meaning.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, in science, we talk about dark matter, dark energy. There was a time when the universe was looked at very mechanicalistically. Now we talk about the bulk of matter in the universe is dark energy, then dark matter. And dark energy, literally, if you translate the word Kali, it literally means that. Shakti literally means that, Kali specifically. So, if you can connect to that source, then you kind of automatically go into a very nice sort of a state of being. We can expand on it further as we move.
Mystics often speak of dissolving the self, whereas artists use their personal experiences to create. So, how do you see the relationship between the ego and creativity? Because, on one hand, we are encouraged to let go of ourselves, like dissolve. Don't think you're somebody great or the work is happening through you. And yet, you're told or you need to use your own life experiences in order to create something. So, how can this be understood?
Yeah, it's the old problem which humankind has dealt with over the millennia. Interestingly, Swami Vivekananda had a very good take on how you uh, drive yourself to express, how to create. See, we have three gunas, right?
Three gunas.
Sattva, Rajas, Tamas.
Yeah, do explain a little bit
yeah.
so that, for those who don't know these, they might not, this might be something interesting to know.
Right.
That what is sattva, what
So-
is rajas, what is
So,
tamas.
Sattva is when you feel united with the Lord. Okay, you feel united with the Lord. Even your physical acts, even your mental surrender, what in the Bhagavad Gita, the Sharanagati Yoga, you're surrendered, and your habits are also in life very moral and very according to the blueprint of the Lord. You follow the Lord's substance in every way, and you maintain a purity of lifestyle and everything.
Yeah, so purity would be the main.
So,
key
and
thing.
Rajas would be when you are, it's a very interesting state where you are doing things in the world. So the word Raja, Rajas, it's
Yeah.
a sort of a where there's a bit of an ego which wants to achieve things in the world, which wants to do things in the world. And the third is the tamogun, which is the state of inertia, where it's characterized. See, none of the gunas are good or bad. There's no such thing. But it's characterized by lethargy. It's characterized by doing the antithesis of what God does. But there are again some spiritual paths, like the Aghora and all that, which do not discard that. Tamogun, right? It can be used, where even in a so-called immoral act, you can have a spiritual consciousness. But we are talking about what Vivekananda said about the Rajogun, is that sometimes a slight sense of ego to be able, yes, I need to come first. I need to do this.
Yeah.
You might not be that aligned to God,
Yeah.
but that can also help you create something good in the world. Sometimes we find a lot of social workers also have done it.
Yeah.
A lot of people in public life have done it. Yes, they also have their glory,
Yeah.
but they use that to do something good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So coming to your question, and interestingly, Vivekananda again has a different take on it now. That's one thing he said. But his interactions with some people who are great achievers also tells us something very interesting. They might not be artists, but I'm taking it slightly beyond art. Now, he's supposed to have met John D. Rockefeller, right, in New York. John D. Rockefeller was that time the richest man in the world, and he had come to meet this young monk who had come from India. And he'd heard about him, but he didn't quite know. So he went to the mansion where Vivekananda was staying. Because Vivekananda some days used to stay in a mansion and some days he used to have no home. He was a sannyasi, he was a monk. So the butler showed him in. He said the owners are not there, but Vivekananda is there. And Vivekananda was writing on the desk. He was barely even 30. Writing on the desk, and he didn't look up at Rockefeller. And Rockefeller was used to people standing up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he said, do you know who I am and why I've come? Then Vivekananda looked up. He says, I know exactly why you're here and why you've been sent. He said, what do you mean sent? I've come. He says, no, you've been sent. Vivekananda said, okay, now sit. And Vivekananda told him that the wealth he had created or whatever productive he had done in his life was not because of him himself. He had gotten that power in trust from the Lord. And after that, Rockefeller's life changed. He became very philanthropic. He went into service. And the tradition of American philanthropy started. That's one part. The second story is about, actually it's an older story. It is about how Jamshed Tata met Swami Vivekananda when he was not even Swami Vivekananda. Because when he was traveling to America for the first time, he had been provided a first class ticket, which was a very big thing by one of the Rajas. So now in sea travel, you spend several days together. It was going via Japan. And Jamshed Tata used to he described it later. He says, I saw this young man and I saw that he walks like he owns the whole universe, but it's like he doesn't want anything. So that power, that grace. And Jamshed Tata was going to Japan to learn about how to make a large-scale match factory. But Vivekananda turned his mind around and he told him, no, you have to start Asia's biggest industry, which became TISCO, and also the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. So I am saying so-called productive people also, in whatever field they are, and the highest artists, like say someone like Rabindranath Tagore, when he writes, you can make out that he's not writing out of ego. Or Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan when he sings out of something is channeled through him, right?
Yes.
So when you come to art also, you'll find that the greatest artists actually are not the egoistic ones. And the egoistic ones become very self-destructive. Sometimes because it's too much to handle on their own. And you'll notice that even whether it is Lalla Lalleshwari of Kashmir or Mirabai, now we don't think of them as artists, but their art is sublime. Na? So they are artists, but they're not artists first.
Yeah.
They don't have the ego of being an artist. So Mirabai's bhajans will remain. Or Tulsi Das's Ramcharit Manas. Or Valmiki, he says, as long as the mountains stand and the rivers flow, the Ramayana shall be told and retold, which it still does in so many colors and forms throughout Southeast Asia, Bali, Thailand, India, and so many different forms. So I feel art and artistry and it's all intercombined. And even, I would say, the artistry to do anything in the world.
Yeah. Many mystical traditions rely on paradox to convey deep truths. How do you use paradox in your writings?
Paradox is something which actually reflects the way things are in the world. And interestingly, at the beginning of my journey, I was very inspired by the idea of being able to reconcile the opposites. Because I feel as a writer, to do justification, or as a speaker, you have to show all sides of the equation. You should not just come from a particular school of thought. And in that regard, Chandana, I found one story very useful. It's from the Upanishads. It's the story of Shwetaketu. And his father, Uddalak, notices that Shwetaketu thinks that he knows everything after going to the Gurukul. So he tells Shwetaketu to pluck the fruit of the Nyagro tree, the banyan tree, and to show him the fruit. So Shwetaketu, and he asks him, Shwetaketu, what is this composed of, this fruit? What is this made of? He says, it's just a fruit. It's come from the tree. It comes from the roots. He says, okay, now break it. So he breaks it. He says, now what can you see? What is it made of? He says, I can see it's made of the seeds. Seeds are. He says, okay, break the seed. And after 2 or 3 steps, Shwetaketu says, but there's nothing. So he says, see, out of nothing came this fruit, came this branch, came these leaves, came this mighty banyan tree, came you and me, came this earth, came this galaxy, came this vastness, came this universe. And Shwetaketu, they say, then became enlightened. So the paradox of life is he thought that he knew things. So it's very important to cut out the sense of knowing. So what I try and do in my writing is, I don't present it that I know a personal thing. I just try to show as many of those dimensions as existence can be reflected in through that particular scripture, through that particular text, etc. And another tool I found very useful is I use the tool called Neti Neti. Right? Now, Neti Neti is a teaching it's an Upanishadic teaching, but interestingly, even Gautam Buddha used to use it. It's very interesting, the overlap. Because in the Aitreya Upanishad, you have the words Charaivati, Charaivati, right? Keep moving ahead. And Gautam Buddha used to tell those words to his disciples before they were going out and preaching in the world. So you have these overlaps. Now, Neti Neti is again a very interesting concept. It says that to come to truth, you have to keep cutting out untruth. Like we talked about the Michelangelo story.
Yeah.
कई बार क्या होता है आध्यात्मिक उसमें और रिलीजियस कॉनोटेशन में कि हम लोग सोचते हैं कि our way is the best and everything else is rubbish. So I feel as a writer, if I'm to do justice, I must use the sword of Neti Neti. Not this, and then what the essence remains, right? And out of that we can derive teachings. Like from the Gita, you can derive teachings to, say, leadership or to other parts. But do not get stuck with your concepts. That's the way I try and use it.
And this is again so beautifully put because, as Michelangelo, he always said that the sculpture or the portrait is already in the stone. I just have to chip away, which is like you said, taking away the truths. And he said that the statue just emerges because just take away. And when you take away whatever the truth, the beauty, the creation exists. It's just the chipping away and the image appears.
So nicely put, and as they say in Buddhism, in Zen Buddhism in particular, they say that the moon can be reflected in all the puddles in different ways, right? In all the lakes and all the puddles. So those dimensions of that one reality.
Yeah. What, according to you, makes any story or any situation really come alive? Come to life?
I think it's like the dewdrops in the morning, freshness really.
So beautiful.
So, I mean, the same kind of dewdrop, or as they say, the no two snowflakes are alike. Right?
Yeah.
Like no two fingerprints are alike.
Yeah.
So, I think it's that, eventually. And I love the Eastern traditions because we don't depend on one personality. For example, the rishis, we have so many beautiful rishis, each expressing their own ways.
Yeah.
You have the way of Vedanta, you have the way of Bhakti, you have the way of Yoga, you have the way of Tantra, etc. So many dimensions. So I think that's what keeps it alive.
And you said it so well because I was just recently hearing a talk on the difference between Western medicine and Indian medicine. And Indian medicine is based mainly out of Ayurveda or these concepts, and yoga, Ayurveda. And the Western medicine is based out of the idea of catering to a complete society. So it's having a population of people, whereas Ayurveda caters to the individual. What is your prakriti? What is your dosha? That so it's such an individualized approach that you don't go with just, yeah, Tylenol. You have a headache, everybody take Tylenol or crocin, or so there's not one medicine, because there's so many other interconnected factors that if you just give one prescription, that, yeah, okay, you have a headache, take this, you have a earache, take this, you don't know about all the other factors involved. So, people tell somebody, go and do this exercise, but they don't know that person might be having cardiac problems. And to just put them on such a strong exercise would damage.
No, you're very well put. You've noticed a trend of heart attacks among so-called fit people.
Yeah,
People are going to gyms and
yeah,
they're being put on similar regimes,
yeah,
and the trainers are pushing them. I've seen so-called very fit guys, but from within something was lacking.
yeah,
Interestingly, on that note, you said Indian medicine, even Chinese medicine.
yeah,
There was a time when you used to have a family retainer, physician on a retainer.
yeah,
Now, the day someone got ill, his retainer used to stop.
yeah,
So the idea was that every day he'd pay attention to keeping you well.
yeah.
It's a system of doing things that way.
Really, that's what they
So
say. The body actually
yeah,
is the nature is for it to stay healthy. But
yes.
we have moved so far away. We are not getting the correct guidance or attention, perhaps, of medical practitioners. So we've moved far away from this beautiful thing we were saying, where families would have their own practitioners. Somebody who would look helping them, supporting them, and looking after
And
their
you
health.
actually just reminded me of something. The word meditation and medication comes from the same root. So if you think about it, maybe that is the medication
Yeah,
we
yeah,
primarily need. I mean,
yes.
it's exactly from the same root.
Yeah, which is
And
again going inwards and just getting connected.
mm,
Because there was somebody who was telling me they went to a Vipassana camp,
mhm.
and this person said that he was traumatized. He went for a 10-day retreat of Vipassana, which, for people who may not know, which is going into silence, into just not talking for 10 days. And it's not just talking, they're not allowed to engage with anything. So they're not allowed to watch their screens, they're not allowed to write, they're not allowed to sing, or no communication with anyone, just completely just going within. And so this person said that after 3 or 4 days, he felt uh, he felt a different dimension of himself. First, there was a lot of noise, like he felt like running away from that place. And after those 3 or 4 days, he said that he just sort of gave up any idea that he needed to be entertained, that I
Mhm.
need to experience something. He said he just felt something within him shift. And he also felt that there were different parts of his body which were hurting. So he felt a different level of pain in his this area. Then he felt that suddenly in the head, in different parts, he felt that pains that he was not aware of before. And this made me think, like you said now, that if our body is giving us signals that, okay, here this is paining a little more, you should take care of it before it becomes something major. And so perhaps because of the way we exist today, we're becoming numb to everything. And so this thing of going inwards, of using that connection of meditation, of quietness, really allows us to find a lot of our answers ourselves.
Wonderfully put. Your talk actually reminded me of a couple of things. One is Vipassana, and it came back to what meditations we were talking about. So, part of Vipassana is the Anapansati yoga, okay? The
What
watching the
does that
breath,
mean? Watching the breath.
which is
Uh-huh.
Gautam Buddha's fundamental practice, right? To just watch the coming in and out of the breath, just watching
Observe.
the
Mm.
gap also in between. And interestingly, even in the Vigyan Bhairav Tantra, that is Shiva's first meditation, which he tells Devi, right? So in our tradition, so again, that's another very beautiful meditation, which we can kind of implement. Just watching, and because breathing is, to breathe, you don't need to do anything.
Yeah.
See, the
Yeah.
idea of it is breathing is the one thing for which you don't need to do anything. Even when you're in the stupor at night, You are still
You're
breathing.
still.
Right? So to become aware of the breath takes you into different layers of beings. And it's interesting because all these teachings have gone through over eons, but some have remained intact.
Yeah.
I mean, in Buddhism, we traditionally think of Buddhism as the historical Sakyamuni Gautam Buddha. But if you go into Buddhism, there are so many primordial Buddhas and all that. And it's very interesting because the what we consider to be spirituality, we've made it a kind of a human-made construct. But if you go into the deeper parts, I mean, of course, in the Mahabharata, you can also find instances of time travel and Arjun going into different realms. In Buddhism, Ananda, we are talking about Ananda, right? The state.
Mm-hmm.
Buddha called his favorite disciple Ananda, who was his cousin. And Ananda describes a time once at night when, according to him, creatures from different planets came and they learned from Gautam Buddha. So our teachings, which we feel are for the human being, are no. These are universal. This could be for beings throughout the universe. So human beings have such a rich heritage to build on. That's why it's important to pay a little attention to that. You know, things like that. I mean, we can carry on with this.
So, Pranay, stepping away, I think there's a curiosity that how did this journey of seeking begin for you? I mean, was it from childhood? Did it at some point in life? Was it something that stuck you at some point, or have you always had this kind of a leaning, and it took others to point it out to you that you're different, or that you're why are you so interested in things like
So
this?
it's very interesting because, I grew up with an education which didn't involve too much of Indian tradition and all that. But I think what really stuck in the consciousness was the stories that my great grandmother used to tell me. So I think at a very formative age, that stuck with me at a very deep, and the seed sprouted after a long time, you know. And of course, my medium was theatre. I used to write plays like From Kabir to Kavi and one on the Mahabharata and so on. And then somebody told me to actually begin speaking because the medium was speech. And my first set of books, which is Spirituality for Leadership and Success, is a collation of my talks which I've given in different places. So I think it's been a bit of a khichdi, but that's the way it's finally, the dish is not tasting so bad. So,
No, and I think that one thing that stuck me is that so many different concepts on Indian philosophies and spirituality, how you manage to sort of simplify them and make them accessible to people who don't really know that much about the topic. I think that for me was the most significant thing, and I wondered that is this a natural ability, or do you yourself have the habit that you, because I feel only somebody who has really understood something can simplify. In fact, I feel those who have not understood much, they can complicate. They can bring in so many unimportant things into that, whatever they wish to convey, just because perhaps they don't have that clarity themselves. But I feel only that person who has really understood something can simplify, because that person knows the core of this is just this. The other stuff is fluff, whether it's included or not doesn't really matter.
so, I'm humbled that you said that. The way I look at it, Chandna, is that it's our job to understand the light is from God, from the universe, whatever. Man, yes, has created the laser beam, which is concentrated light. But overall, I think, you get back where you hold a prism to that light. That prism allows you to see the inner reality of those different shades within that one light, which is the one truth. But it has so many shades.
Yeah.
So really what I'm trying to do is interpreting those different shades, which I feel brings a bit of a completeness. Instead of saying that, no, this is it.
Yeah.
It's not Vibgyo, it's only V. Or it's only R, right? So, but it's the prism.
Yeah.
It's the rainbow,
Yeah.
right?
And so when you pick your themes or your topics, do you go by instinct as to what theme you should take on, or do you are you told to do something that this would be of value and so you should do this, or is it something? How do you choose actually?
Actually, I feel I don't choose. It chooses me. Very frankly, I'll tell you, it's a very difficult situation. Like I was writing on Tagore. अब टगोर के बारे में लिख रहे हो, सॉन्ग्स ऑफ कबीर आ गया, अब तो लिखना ही पड़ेगा ना.
Yeah.
तो करते करते 50 से ज़्यादा हो गई. So I feel I'm helpless. So I've just made myself available to that. And by God's grace, I've been a little avail. I've had that time and energy to do that little bit, just to be present. Because I've never too much of a studious person or a very bookish person. So I feel it's chosen me, in that way.
Coming to which I feel that whenever people think that they want to respond to their calling or just to their own curiosity, many people say we are unable to do this because we've got so many things, we've got responsibilities, we've got to carve out something which can be a dependable profession for us to earn a livelihood. So when you decided to walk this path, was this at all a consideration? Were you supported? Was that what enabled you? I think that these things are what people would really benefit from
No,
learning
I
about.
appreciate that. And see, sometimes in life, one does feel a little blessed that you're able to do something which can give you ananda.
Yeah, very
Like
much.
today, you can do music. Now you've chosen something which can give you ananda. I think these boys, this team who are photographing us, they follow. I was speaking to them. One of them told me about how audio is his passion. Now, by God's grace, God gave his parents to that energy and wisdom also to go with his thing.
Yeah.
God gave him the right circumstances. God made him probably born in a good city for this kind of work, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or these boys doing the camera work. So we have to be grateful for the opportunities for ananda that God gives us or existence gives us. That's one. And number two, I feel sometimes we waste too much time being self-critical or critical of others and complaining. So, ठीक है, चलते जाओ, and there will be opportunities where you can make space for whatever you can do, But yes, definitely, if you can choose those things which give you a little joy, that is the correct path, I feel.
Could you recommend to those who feel that they enjoy things, they are curious about things, but they just feel bogged down by the feeling of responsibility or security, which would you say abandon security, responsibility in the worldly sense, and do what brings you ananda or gives you joy, or which actually leads you in the direction of your curiosity? Personally, what do you feel? I mean, there's no universal truth,
No, no.
but
I personally see, very frankly speaking, I am a person who likes to write in a comfortable environment, etc. So I am not the person to preach to somebody else. But there have been examples in history who I can respect. And I just want to put it in a perspective. Now, if you go into Indian history, the biggest kingdom that has ever existed in India is the Maurya kingdom. Chandragupta Maurya, right? Now, Chandragupta Maurya, imagine Chandana, at the peak of his kingdom, he became a Jain Muni and he sacrificed everything. And he actually, as a result of his penance, he actually gave up his body also. He went to South India. So there are those kind of people able to make those sacrifices. In fact, if you go to old Jain caves and all where they used to meditate, you get an awe. They had so much resilience and sacrifice. But maybe you and I don't, because we are softer in some ways, right? Modern life is also a little softer.
yeah.
So I would not say that there are, for people who have that higher calling, I'm nobody to tell them not to. Like we had discussed, I mean, Gautam Buddha giving up the family life and comfort also.
Yeah.
People say, oh, he sacrificed his wife and his thing. But even his comfort,
Yeah.
as if he didn't make a personal sacrifice, right?
No, that was
And the
huge.
beauty is later on, Rahula became a disciple, one of the most prominent. And his wife also, followed his teachings. His father also, in a way. So there is something about providing, being comfortable, having a space. But I think sometimes we make it the utmost priority. Is the only difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm absolutely not against technology. I'm not against somebody doing of someone of practical value in the world. Who is it who said it? Whether it was Elon Musk or Steve Jobs, be of value in whatever way. I think that's the service one can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the idea of service can happen in many ways, right?
Have you ever had an experience, either while writing or otherwise, where you felt that something beyond yourself was guiding you?
So let me share something, Chandana, which I've never done on a public platform ever. And I think it's time I do it because your question is very relevant to that. Several years back, without before I had written any of my books, one morning I had woken up, and for some reason I started writing on Swami Vivekananda. Now I didn't quite know what I was writing. I was just having my chai and just kept writing something about Vivekananda, my thoughts on him and so.
Mm.
And I was enjoying it. And by the time I finished, I realized there was quite a lot of material. I didn't really go back to it. In the evening, somebody told me that, do you know today is Vivekananda's birthday? I got a shock of my life because I had never written anything like that. And I realized I had already written 2, 3 chapters. And trust me, from that day is the day I started really writing. And I think Vivekananda had been on my mind. So that to me was a signal of some sort, very frankly speaking, to get it down in actual black and white, paper and pen.
Mm.
So that was something which struck me
It's
as
sort of
being,
it's an experience where
and it was a catalyst. It was a catalyst because it started this whole journey of writing books.
Mm.
Before that, I had never really contemplated writing books at all.
So, what were you, as a young man who was kind of, everybody is asked if you don't feel yourself clear. So, were you thinking of some other profession before this
Yeah, I've
writing
dabbled
came
in a
up?
lot of professions.
Lot of professions? Like,
As in, I was an MBA student
ooh,
and I was in the mainstream world. And I joined a company called Welcome Theatre. I was doing theatre at a very serious level. I founded my own businesses. So all that was going on. Then the speaking
so
part.
were they successful businesses?
Yeah, in fact, by God's grace, they were all successful, though I didn't put in that kind of energy to make them hyper successful. But by God's grace, I used to not pitch for too much business and all. It used to just come.
And which
So
is
it was,
amazing that, you know, I think that people feel that there's hope when you feel that you're not even very clear about what like your life's work is going to be. And yet you apply yourself in many different things. Some of them even work well. And then along the way, you find your true calling.
no,
So,
you've put it very movingly, actually. I'm very moved by what you said. And it reminds me of a story which I might share. It's interesting because sometimes what you intend to do doesn't turn out the way
yeah,
you do.
yeah.
But I think it's the state of being that you should be in. So once what happened, Ananda, who's Buddha's disciple, and Ananda and others, they were crossing a stream and all that. And they had gone a long way. So then Buddha rested and he said, Ananda, please get me some water from that stream. Very nice water. So Ananda went and he got some water in the jar. And he came. And Buddha said that, no, but the water is muddy. So Ananda got irritated. He said, obviously it's muddy because we just went from there. He said, no, please go and come again. Then Ananda went again. And then he realized the water is still muddy. Why? Because the whole party had crossed the stream. No? So their footsteps had created the... Then what Ananda sat over there. He sat for some time.
Mm.
And after sitting for a while, was just sitting silently. And before he knew it, the water became clean.
Mm.
He didn't have to do anything.
That stillness.
We think we have to
allowing.
do everything.
Yeah.
But sometimes actually existence is doing the work. So just that small time passed, he was patient. So I think, that patience, as Buddha says, the virtues of Khanti, etc.
Yeah.
So, and he got the water and it was beautiful. And the Buddha had the water. So actually Buddha was teaching him about how you just have to be a little patient. Don't panic. Karna hai to aaj kar, ek hota hai na. We do this, that's good.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to give life a chance.
Yeah.
And life can be beautiful. It can
Yeah.
unfold things.
Yeah. So, Pranay, do you think that children have an innate kind of understanding of life, of perhaps of spiritual aspects, without even knowing it or recognizing it as that? And is this something we start losing as we grow older?
Yeah, all the scriptures will talk about how children really know that they are Sukh Swarupa, Ananda Swarupa. And we, as we get jaded, like you said, Ghalib's mirror, right? The dust, So uh, we forget that we are of the element called Sukha, Ananda. I mean, it's reflected in children playing. Children generally don't get tired. You have to tell them to come from the field. They're playing. But then life, you got into routine. They're doing it out of joy. They're being playful, what we call the state of playfulness, creativity. In that, it's a flow, what now we call in psychology a state of flow, right? So when you're in a state of flow, productivity becomes very high. Great inventors have had that. Great inventors have had so much flow. There are stories about somebody waking up in the morning and there's a scribbled note which they scribbled at night. And that actually is the correct formula. That's the state of awareness. Or the discovery of penicillin. I mean, the man was alert and he realized that this was the breakthrough. So the state of flow, the state of delight, the state of ananda, the state of realizing that you're Sukh Swarupa, if you don't forget it when you're older, then you still remain young, you still remain that child. And we are all children. Our cosmic parent is, yes, our biological parents are our parents. But our cosmic parents, what we say is Gauri Shankar, Radha Krishna, the universe, existence. So we should remain understanding that we are composed of the Sukha and Ananda that they have instilled in us.
You said something so nice, Pranay, which is that we are all children. And my mom would say this often, that when we was young, we used to think, she would say that, I don't feel old at all. I feel the same. She said, but people think I'm older now, but I don't feel old. And that's because, we are all filled with curiosity. We are all also aware that however old you get, you're not going to know everything about the world. So there's always something to learn, something to get excited about. And so all these qualities which we have, childhood is such a important, that holding on to your childhood, that childlike the excitement, that childlike curiosity is so important for us to just keep growing irrespective of whatever age we are.
You've given such a beautiful, depthful response. And in fact, coming to a meditation, that's also a meditation which is non-denominational. Anybody from any religion can use that meditation. Because it's not about a particular mantra. Go within yourself and you realize that you're still that child.
Mm.
Actually, on the surface, you may think, oh, I've aged an old year older.
Yeah.
But if you relate to yourself, you've always been that only.
Yeah.
You see, so it's magical.
Yeah.
It suddenly takes you out of that space where you're jaded, tired,
Yeah.
shoulders bent. Think about your youthfulness within,
Yeah.
and how you relate it to yourself. And that's your eternal relation with existence. It's very interesting. That day
Absolutely.
we were having a discussion during Durga Puja last year. So I just told someone, I said, see, look at Ma. She's been coming for so many centuries. She remains the same. All of us come and go.
Yeah.
But we are still her children, right?
Yeah.
So that's the way. Because we're talking on a temporal plane, on a material plane.
Yeah.
But we are actually the children of eternity, of infinity.
So, Pranay, if there is one ancient wisdom that, people would understand today, what do you think that would be?
Can I venture two?
Please,
Okay.
please,
So
double.
the first, I think, which rings a bell through all spiritual traditions and through the wisdom over millennia, so many paths, so many lands, can be distilled through Gautam Buddha's Apo Dipo Bhava. Find the light within yourself, right? And that light, what he's saying is the light exists within you, the light of Buddhahood, the light of Rishihood, the light of enlightenment, excellence, courage, bravery, whatever. But you have to seek it yourself. So in Zen Buddhism, they say that, when the master is pointing the finger at the moon, we look at the finger. But actually, we should look at the light, which is the moon, the reflected light, right, of the moon. So that is one. We should not forget that the light which lights up the nebulae and the galaxies and this wondrous creation also exists within us. I think, first of all, that is the root of realizing your own sukha, your energy, your shakti in whatever you do. Right? Shiva Shakti, your energy and consciousness in whatever you do. Second teaching is actually through a story, if I might explain. So what happened once was, there was this disciple of the Buddhas. And Gautam Buddha used to notice that disciple, And that boy had come from a royal family, like Gautam Buddha. But the strange thing about this boy was that he was too tough on himself. He used to, when he used to meditate in the rain also, he used to not come into the shade. He'll meditate for hours together. Doesn't matter what happens to him. If there's hot sun also, he'll sit over there. It was like he was punishing himself. Okay? So Bante, that word for teacher in Pali, Bante called him and said, come here, son. He said, I know you were a prince. And I heard that you used to play beautiful music on the veena. So the boy said, yes, Bante. I used to play beautiful music on the veena. And why it's relevant is because you're a musician and a classical musician. So I think this is... So he said, Buddha asked him, he says, if the strings of the veena are too tight, what happens? So he says, Bante, it'll snap. And he says, if the strings of the veena are too loose, what happens? He says, Bante, no music can be played. It becomes a useless instrument. So then he understood, and Bante said, yes, you are the instrument. Don't tightly wind yourself up so much because you'll snap. And I think this is the crux of what all we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Be a
That
little
balance,
relaxed. And don't be too loose also.
Yeah.
That you can, see, you need a certain resolve in life. You look at any great people, Gautam Buddha, or Jamshed Tata, or Srinivas Ramanujan, or anyone great. They had a deep driving force within them. But at the same time, they kept their mind vast and able to do much more. And they could live a productive life without snapping and burning out. So I think this is a timeless teaching that we all need to assimilate, especially at a time when we are very wound up. But at the same time, we are sometimes a little extra lax also. So we must have the discipline to make space. But at the same time, we must not get too over agitated and snap apart. Which affects our work, which affects our relationship, and nothing is worth it, really.
I don't know why I suddenly thought of this one story which I'd heard. And it would be interesting to hear your perception on that. There was this one guy. He was, in a place like, imagine if we are talking about Pune and Mumbai city, since we were talking about that before. So the distance between Pune to Mumbai city is probably about 3 hours or so. But so there was a young person, a young kid, who was asked that, somebody said that, do you think the moon is closer or is Mumbai closer to you? So the boy very spontaneously said, oh, the moon is closer to me. So one wondered, how can the child say the moon is closer? That's ridiculous. The moon is so far. And Mumbai, what is Mumbai? Just 3 hours away. And then they asked the child, why do you say that Mumbai? And they started arguing with the kid that, no, actually Mumbai is just so close by. It's just 3 hours. And you're talking about the moon? So the kid said, no. He said that I can see the moon here. So I know what Mumbai is. I can see the moon. But to go to Mumbai, I don't know where Mumbai is. I can't see it. I don't have a sense of it. So I was wondering that, what are your thoughts on this story?
Brilliantly put. You've explained the concept of warp speed now. You can go to another dimension. It's just your nazariya. It's just your attitude. Now that child's attitude explained it all. Because he was not looking at it in terms of physical distance. He was saying, what's closer to my heart? What's more meaningful?
And what was visible to him?
Visible.
Something
and he had
more
the
value.
ability to put it in such a beautifully intrinsic manner instead of a knowledge-based answer.
Yeah.
Which is so amazing.
Yeah.
And on that count, through all the scriptures, if you hear God's voice echo, that I'm always with you.
Yeah.
My strength is always with you. And I think we must always remember that within us, that no, there's a reason that existence has given birth to us.
Yeah.
And we must feel that strength and draw from that strength. Actually, there's this generator which is always working for us, But we forget. We feel sometimes lights off, ho gaye to ho gaya.
Yeah, yeah,
End of game. But there is this universal, infinite turbine working for us, which never tires,
yeah.
and who wants to give us, right? But sometimes we block it out. I mean, we are limited by body, we are limited by lifespan, etc. But at least within those moments, we should draw on it, whatever we choose to call that.
So, Pranay, what have been the questions that you've really struggled with? That you've moved forward, and there've been things which have really been like challenging for you to undergo, to deal with, that might have made you doubt this seeking in the first place. So, what were your real challenges on this path of seeking
I
spirituality?
think I've been inundated by doubts and challenges more often than anyone would realize. And then I realized that eventually the journey always begins with some doubt. So then I stopped fearing the doubt. Doubts keep happening. There's so many things we need to deal with in our lives. But what I realized was always the journey begins with doubt, whether it is Arjun, doubtful state on the battlefield, or Vivekanand, always doubtful about Sri Ramakrishna, always doubtful about. But I think that's the correct way. So what I love, especially about our Eastern traditions, is that doubt is not a disadvantage, but to learn to deal with it is the point. Because people who don't doubt will believe any nonsense who anyone is saying. And unfortunately, in our world, that's been happening. Whether it has been in religion over the millennia, whether it's been in statesmanship or politics over the millennia, that's the story of humankind, right? We bite into some stories. But doubt, I realized we have to have the ability to face up to it. It's interesting. J. Krishnamurti is a person I've admired, a very pure kind of a person. And I realized that in some of his small little life incidents, I found some wisdom. Like they talked about a Diwali while he was in India. And he told the children, he said, no, look at the lights. Alert. Don't be scared.
Mm,
So we have to be alert enough to, and then the Lord's or Krishna's strength can stand with us.
mm, mm.
Krishna didn't make magically Arjun lift the bow. He didn't make him lift the bow magically. He said, now lift up the bow and fight. He could have created magic. But God has given you a lot of wherewithal to do. Very interestingly, after the Mahabharata war, 18 days war, Kurukshetra. And what had happened was Arjun's chariot had burst into flames. So Arjun was shocked. He was surprised. He said, what happened, Lord? While we were in the chariot, nothing happened. We were saved and I was saved. You are the Lord, but I was saved. And we alighted and the war is over. We won. And he says, Arjun, who was on top of your chariot? He says, okay. There was a flag of Hanuman. He says, you understand? The divine has protected you. So even without our realizing, he says, otherwise you would have been killed by so many arrows. He says, but Lord, you were sitting. He said, no, Hanuman protects me also. So even the Lord. So that grace, that divine grace is there at hand. Most of the time we don't recognize it. And we go more into doubt. But if you look at the fact that you and I are alive today itself is a miracle.
Yeah.
There are so many times. So that is the realization which I felt has brought me out of those situations. And if you look at any Gita, if you look at, Raja Janak has been described as the most enlightened person in normal life by Sri Krishna himself. But even Janak had to learn from the 13-year-old Ashtavakra to clear his doubts. That's the way it goes. It's always a dialogue like that. Even Shakti questions Shiva and Shiva questions Shakti, right? Which is the Tantras, the Agamas, etc. So it's an interlocution. It's a give and take. It's a sharing.
So, Pranay, in your book series, which we have right here, which is Spirituality for Leadership and Success, could you, in brief, walk us through the main tenets that you sort of teach over here?
If I were to just mention a couple of lessons, actually this comprises 5 titles, which is Hinduism, the Gita, Vedanta, Buddha, Vivekanand. There are a few enduring things which stand out. For example, one from the Hinduism book would be the episode where Krishna encourages Yudhishthir to listen to Bhishma when Bhishma is, on his deathbed of arrows. And really what Bhishma says is that leadership should be wisdom-led, because fear and these other things, they make people, your praja respect you, but wisdom makes everybody respect you. So inculcation of wisdom, whether we call it worldly wisdom, spiritual wisdom, higher wisdom, whatever. Number one. Number two is that universal thing we call courage. There's an incident in the Mahabharata which we don't know too much about, but Yudhishthir actually is wondering how they'll defeat the Kaurav army. So much bigger, right? And he asks Arjun. So now Arjun becomes the counselor. He says, see, we are fighting on the side of justice. We are fighting on the side of right. And we are fighting with courage in our hearts. And we are fighting with the Lord. So that will always stand you in good stead in your life. Never feel that you are lesser than anyone. Never feel that's true. Number three is a very interesting, with the Samudra Manthan story, which we call between the Devs and the Asurs. Now, generally we have a tendency to blame one party or the other. But you see, to produce Amrit, both the Devs and Asurs were required to work together. So the idea of cooperation, especially in our world of today, to solve a problem. So that was a cosmic problem, right? So the ocean had to be churned. At the end, all good things came. Dhanvantri, Lakshmi, so health, wealth, success, and Amrit. But to do it, we must have a spirit of cooperation. Now everybody is like, I am on this side, you're on that side.
Yeah.
So to work together.
Yeah, if there's too much of just competition, how do people
So how to
work?
cooperate is the next paradigm, I feel. Yeah. And through the different books, we've touched on different things, but I just thought briefly I'll
Yeah,
tell you.
yeah. No, that's very helpful. So Pranay, also from your Buddha wisdom library. So in this, you've pulled out, the different qualities that the human has to inculcate, has to bring about in order to just for us to experience wisdom at a day-to-day level. So do you think we could go through some of these tenets?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Buddhism itself is an ocean, right, into which many streams flow. Now, the idea I always felt was that every branch speaks from their point of view. So I wanted to speak from a more oceanic point of view. But I had to condense it into 5 books, right? And the titles are Calmness, Courage, Excellence, Enlightenment, and Bliss, which is the first title. And Bliss we've spoken about.
We've spoken about quite a
lot. But so the idea was Buddhism is spoken in so many different languages, right through Southeast Asia, the Far East. So many different cultures have their own schools of Buddhism. But I wanted to speak about it in entirety without taking away the essence. So in the books, you'll find Mongolian, you'll find Japanese, and everything else like that. But to sum it up, what I realized was, while I've given them 5 titles, can I make a quick summary of the virtues which are actually Buddhism speaks about? So let us run it from A to Z. Okay, A, what is your aim in life? You must have some higher aim, even if you're doing things at a functional level. See, Zen Buddhism is very interesting. Even a gardener who's gardening the garden, it is how you garden.
Yes.
The archer, how you shoot. Where the archer disappears and the arrow remains and it finds its mark. The tea making ceremony, the attention you give. Tea is tea, but it's the quality that you bring. So aim. B, I would say a sense of bliss, a sense of blissfulness. Realize that you're blissful. Realize that you have a capacity for blissfulness. Share it with others. You'll notice some people come into the room and you feel happy because they have a blissful energy around them.
They have a very positive,
like you, for example.
Energy.
So you, when you walk into a room, when you meet you, for example, somebody meets you, you get that vibe, right? C, calmness, we've spoken about. I think A and B lead to C, okay? D, again, daring. The ability to dare to do new things. E is having a good energy. Keep a good energy. In Buddhism, that's very important. Why in Buddhism? On all paths, okay? F, Maitreya, friendliness. Maitri. In fact, the next coming of the Buddha is supposed to be the Maitri Buddha. So have a universal feeling of friendliness. See, people talk about networking. Yaar, main usse phone nahi kar paya. Friendly people, they have an ability to reach 100 people. In a day, they don't mind making 100 calls. Tell me, Chandana, you work in the world. You've done so many things. Do you feel if you have a friendly quality, things become easy?
Undoubtedly.
Actually, you can connect with anyone. You can talk business, whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's just like you said, the connection. Just the joy of just feeling there's another human being. And
In fact, Gautam Buddha, somebody asked him, what's the highest quality? So people thought he'll say love. He said no, it's maitri, friendship, affection. Arey, affection.
Affection.
Love blows hot and cold.
Yeah.
But affection, बहुत अच्छी quality.
Yeah.
And you'll notice with good friends, you have affectionate quality. F. H for honesty. ये मेरा सब homemade है, but this is the. I hope you're enjoying it. Okay?
I am.
H for honesty, right? Honesty also goes with integrity. GHI. J. J is having a jovial nature. So there's a laughing Buddha, right? There's a laughing Buddha, and that person was supposed to. All he did in life was he used to carry that thing and he used to distribute sweets to children.
Oh,
And
sweet.
there's another. What happened was when he was dying, and even in their tradition, saints, they used to cremate. And suddenly during the cremation, they started hearing the noise of firecrackers. He made his people stitch firecrackers into the clothes
Oh my God.
just to make people laugh even after he died. Dekho kitna jovial. K is kindness, karuna, compassion, whatever you call it. Very important virtue. The more compassionate you are towards others, the better you feel. And you'll feel the law of attraction giving you more and more. Most of us are so conjuice. Karuna, compassion nahi hai. Even when we're
Would
distributing
you
things.
add forgiveness also in this?
It's included.
Yeah.
Actually, for each there are 5, but
Yeah.
absolutely, it's the virtue.
Because so many people stay stuck. They're just unable to let go and forgive.
Right.
And that actually just holds us back.
It
It's
holds
not-
us
Yeah,
back.
it's not even about the other person. Maybe they were absolutely evil. But if you're going to stay held up, then
And it doesn't
you're
cost
being
anything.
disturbed. It doesn't cost
Whereas
anything.
it is costing us everything by not doing
by
it.
not doing it.
L follows from their love, right? Real love.
Real love.
In
Which has become
Tibet,
so
it's called prema.
confusing, right? People say, I love chocolates. I love my sleep. I love anything. Love has become a very
Yeah.
casual word,
So
unfortunately.
love and lotus. See, love and lotus. Lotus is very important. One of my covers also has that. Lotus.
Yes.
So, prem, prema, padma, pema. These are all related words. Have the quality of the lotus. Even in a Om Mani Padme Hum, you've heard, right? In Tibetan. In Pali, it is Om Mani Padme Hum,
Okay.
right? So, the lotus-like quality is that even within a muddy pond, you can blossom. Even within muddy circumstances. L, M. M is mindfulness, what you can call the state of dhyana, attentiveness, mindful. N, we use the word neti, nothing. Sometimes just cut out the rubbish.
Yeah.
I've got a good real life, and Steve Jobs was very interesting. He was a disciple of Neem Karoli Baba. I mean, he used to
Yes,
virtually
yes.
consider him,
Yeah.
so he never met him in person. Number 2, he was also a Zen Buddhist. And he had a neti system, on their retreats. He used to ask people suggestions for what product line they're going to do. And he used to cross out most of them. There's only so much you can do in life. Just let's cut out the nonsense.
Yeah.
Thoda kuch toxic cheese, let it go. You have to let it go. Let go.
In fact, he said one very important thing, which is he said that it is not people say that, what can I do? He said it's not that. He said, what can you give up? In the sense, if you have 10 ideas, out of it, you can't do all. You're going to have to give up some so that the ones that you actually pick can really become something.
You said something beautifully. He asked Jonathan Ive, his designer, that question. That Jonathan, what are you willing to sacrifice? Sacrifice. Very important. Some things just leave it. Just concentrate on making something beautiful.
Yeah.
Few things.
Yeah.
O is openness. While you can do neti, but keep an open mind because it's vast.
Yeah.
P. P, do you have any suggestions? See, P, you must have a passion for something.
And peace.
Huh?
Passion and peace.
Yeah, passion and peace both. But not a peaceful passion, I would say. In fact,
Yes.
beautifully put.
Yeah.
Like be passionate, but do not go mad over it. Yeah, be a little obsessive.
And don't be destructive, I guess. That way.
Peaceful, right? P. I'm forgetting my alphabet.
Q.
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 Q for quietness. I think, quiet, shant, om, shanti. See, everything ends with that,
Yeah.
right? Shanti, shanti, shanti. A beautiful mantra, the Shanti mantra, correct?
R.
Oh, it ends with Om Tat Sat. Oh, Hari Om Tat Sat. So even Sat, okay, Shanti. S. PQRST.
R.
Huh?
R.
Oh, PQ. R is relaxation, I feel.
Yeah.
PQR, just a mental state of
Yeah. Yeah.
relaxed, all the all the different layers of beings relaxed.
Mm.
RST. T for toughness is good, but truth, of course. I mean, the
Truth,
search for
probably.
truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, if there's something, people say, Are you write on religion? I said, no, I'd like to write on truth. There are two things. Acha, acha, so what is the difference between science and spirituality? Actually, there's no difference. Actually, both are a search for truth, but through different ways and means. You see the beauty of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So the search for truth is very important. Your truth, self-truth, universal truth, whatever it is. You. You is for understanding others, listening, understanding others. I think that in Zen Buddhism, the act of Shravan, to listen and to pay attention and to understand. In fact, a lot of texts are also supposed to be written without words, that they were transmitted and the alert disciples understood. You, we. V for victory. Now it's very interesting in Jainism. I mean, the Tirthankar, the Jinna, the victor. So, and Buddha also says, be a victor over yourself.
Yeah. Or the Jai Ho concept.
Jai Ho, right? So, that kind of a thing. V, what is it? I'm
W.
forgetting.
W.
W. W is, you give me a suggestion.
Wisdom.
Wisdom, yes, definitely. I mean, to inculcate wisdom, I think, is the greatest bliss in life, right? W, X. Now, X, I feel, is the X factor. I'll tell you, the X factor is the unexplained, according to me. Now, it's a very curious thing.
Or the
Elon Musk calls
invisible.
it the invisible.
Yeah.
Calls it X. And then we had the X files. It's a very interesting word because all we can think of is xylophone, but hota nahi hai. X factor. It's the old story about Duryodhan and Yudhishthir. When Duryodhan approached Sri Krishna, and first of all, he was standing at the head of his. And Krishna gave him the choice between his army and him. But actually, the whole table turned because the X factor, the divine, was with the Pandavas.
Completely.
And Krishna allowed him to choose. That's the X factor in life.
The X factor.
That's divine grace. That's what we are talking.
Yeah.
Why? Why we are talking about youthfulness? Never look at yourself as tired, aged, etc. Always maintain a certain youthfulness, which is a quality of productive people.
And that's actually a quality, as you said, because there's so many young people who act like, there's no matlab to life. Or I see so much of a jadedness, a cynicism.
And whereas some older people are much
and
fuller.
then you find older people
much more youthful.
that they have such a different kind
The
of
look in the eyes.
the look in the eyes, the kind of vibrancy of their spirits.
Passion. You see, that's what Krishna says in the Gita. That when Arjun asks him, how does the sage walk, talk, sit? Same in our tradition. Even in Buddhism, it's how the Zen master walks, talks, sips a cup of tea. It's all about the small things.
It's all that ras, to enjoy the ras
and
of
we had
things,
discussed
absorb
the
that.
Leela. You see, Ras Leela also what? It is the bhava, which is more important.
The emotion.
So we forget that it's not the act itself, it's the bhava into it.
So
the
that
smallest thing.
So that youthfulness of just feeling connected and curious and
it's like in Japan they had the samurai death poem. Like even facing death, which is the ultimate sacrifice, but even before that the samurai used to write a death poem. And he used to write something beautiful about the sakura leaves falling, It's very hair-raising. Or the dewdrop on the leaf and it disappears, So even there, so what are we complaining about? So you must go with Z, which is zeal, zest for life.
Zest for life.
The kind you have, and I wish you much more and more. Miles to go.
I mean, this A to Z has been an amazing, a quick A to Z.
And I'll tell you very frankly, I didn't think
your
it through.
quick through. So lovely.
I
that
didn't think it through, I just said it.
Spontaneously you just brought it. And I think, we find that really in every word, there is a sense, there is a spiritual vibration in every alphabet.
And I think we again come to S, sharing. I think, see, it's not about people say, अरे ज्ञान है. I said, नहीं, ये तो sharing है. हम तो एक fellow travelers हैं एक cosmic journey पे. कोई अपने आप को ज़्यादा कुछ समझता है, but we are all fellow travelers. Pilot कोई और है.
Pilot कोई और है. Pilot कोई
Lovely,
और है.
lovely. God bless.
So, Pranay, I was wondering if we could do a quick, like literally a 2-minute, an essence of all these amazing individuals that you've written about. So if anyone comes to your mind, whether it's Kabir whether it's Swami Vivekanand, whether it's
Tagore.
Tagore. So whoever, we all these names are big and we've heard of them. But very often we don't know just the essence of them, that what was really remarkable about them. And how would we best remember them or appreciate the in short? Because to talk of one person's life would be a
I
podcast in
absolutely am
itself.
with you.
Yeah.
Starting with Swami Vivekananda is very close to my heart. Sri Aurobindo, the famous Sri Aurobindo of Pondicherry, was such a vast person. And he did so many things in his life, which is unfathomable, massive, profound. So when he was in Alipur jail, actually, when he was very young, he supposed to have been visited by the spirit of Swami Vivekananda, right? And got siksha from Swami Vivekananda. Later on in his life, a lot of his disciples asked, but Sri Aurobindo, this Swami Vivekananda never said this. So he said, Swami Vivekananda is like an iceberg. What happens with iceberg? You can see a small part above the water. The main iceberg is below the water. So true yogis are like that. So what you and me think...
So it's not the illusion, it's the real
and
thing.
actually so what work they do in the world is because life is brief. He was not even 40. He made the prediction that he won't be 40 and he died. So Vivekananda's quality you can gauge from there. He did so many things in life, so many things for the modern age. He was talking about the atomic age 10 years before Einstein and anyone. So he's done so many things which we can't even fathom, but he just did it like that. And he used to say, my master can create 1,000 Vivekanandas. That is Vivekananda in essence. He's a mystery. Rabindranath Tagore's vastness of mind and soul, if I might just tell you a few lines, I just feel that this summarizes the man's heart, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depths of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. He's talking about country, but he's talking about humanity as a whole. I think the vastness of heart and mind of Rabindranath Tagore, we don't realize he had become so famous that there were people who wanted to reach him with letters while he was in Europe. And they used to just write, some people who didn't know his address, Rabindranath Tagore, London, and it used to reach him. It used to reach him. So he's a global rock star whose work has so many myriad dimensions. He used to say, all my writings can be forgotten, but my songs will remain sung. And each one of them, it's so interesting. There's this poem which was Audrey Hepburn's favorite, which she made Gregory Peck read at her funeral, So he's timeless, and I feel that he's a Vishwa Kavi, for ages to come.
Yes.
So in that category, I feel I can put very few people. Okay, I'll put Tulsi Das ji there, I'll put Goethe there, I'll put Shakespeare there, I'll put Valmiki ji there. So Valmiki ji being the Adi Kavi. So it's very beautiful, beautiful, timeless sort of things he's spoken about. Kabir, of course, Darya ki leher darya hai ji. The river and its waves are one. There's no separation.
Wonderful.
The wave thinks it is separate from the ocean. Darya ki leher darya hai ji. Dissolve into it. We've talked about that. So no matter what we think that we are separate, we are just waves crashing back into the same existence. And Kabir is a conundrum. On one hand,
And that's why, do you think this also connects with Moko kahan dhoonde re bande?
Totally.
Main to tere paas mein.
Totally.
So
beautiful.
it's the idea that, however
Why don't you
far
make us
this
listen
is
to a couple of lines?
Moko kahan dhoonde re bande? Main to tere paas mein. Na tirath mein, na murath mein, na ekant nivas mein. Main to tere paas mein. Main to tere paas
बहुत
mein.
सुंदर, बहुत सुंदर.
These lines are so profound. I actually had an experience recently. I had waited to go to Banaras. It was that one place where, you've heard of things that Ganga is there, you wash away your sins. And I had been waiting for this experience for the longest time. And strangely, it didn't happen 10 years back. In fact, It was so strange. I was in Delhi, supposed to go to Banaras, and on the morning of my flight, my father passed away. And I took that as a little bit of a bad signal. I said that this is so unfortunate. And so we never ended up going. And then for 10 years, I put it off. And then in 2022, somehow again the time seemed right, let's go. And so I went to Banaras, and there was undoubtedly a very strong, powerful vibe there. But I was a little disappointed with the way that people were sort of living there, behaving. I went to the temples, and I found it to be so commercialized that there were just lines as if you could pay money to get to God. Even in the lines, you were just being pushed. There was no sense of peace. It was so much of noise. It was so chaotic, and literally there was just no peace. You could not feel peaceful. After that, when I went to get prasad, um, the people who were selling the prasad, they were trying to tell me that no, don't buy this prasad because it's not good. It's not made in hygienic things. Buy this. And overall, I mean, there might be practical stuff involved in this, but I felt a little disappointed that what the image I carried in my heart of feeling, I'm coming to a place, and what I had to deal with was something completely contrary. And so a lot of things, I thought I might be able to meet, go to one of the ashrams, meet a spiritual person, a spiritual guru. Unfortunately, a lot of these con people took me to meet people who were far from gurus. And I mean, I'm 100% sure that there must be the authentic, real ones. I didn't get a chance to get to them. And the last night was memorable when I was walking along the banks of Ganga, feeling very disappointed. It was after 4 days of waiting and feeling that this was not really what I was seeking. And in my heart, I started to feel a fear that will I miss the real thing? And on the last night, it was probably 12:31, and so for once it was very quiet, peaceful. And as I was walking along the banks of the river, of the ghats, I came to this place where they have the public burials, where people are burnt at night, and 24 hours actually, because so many people, the desire is to come and die in Banaras. And suddenly I felt a different kind of thing envelop me, like there were dead bodies being burnt. And I just felt like going and sitting near one of the bodies. I sat there, and initially something would have freaked me out of sitting in front of a dead burning body. Strangely, there was none of that fear. It seemed so natural, so quiet. And I could see the toes of the body, out there, and still nothing. It just seemed so natural. And that's when I realized my deep desire to actually connect, to find some deeper meaning, some essence, that was not in anything outside. It was in sitting quietly there, and just a realization that why am I looking outside? All the answers are within. I need to, and literally, the words of Kabir came then, that moko kahan dhoonde re bande, main to tere paas mein. So it was this wonderful realization that yes, we go to different places, and there is a vibe, there is a feeling, and I did get it finally on the last day. But there was also this deeper understanding and awareness that we are trying to seek everything outside of ourselves or a quick answer. And that doesn't happen. It took me going through all of these to really realize that there was no need necessarily to have taken the trip to feel that my answers would just come from some guru, some temple, some. It was about sitting in that quiet space of life and death, where so many of the answers, the seekings, became unimportant.
I'm
So
very,
the
very moved to hear your personal account. And I could actually see that the Lord was lifting the veil of Maya,
yeah,
and taking you beyond the external and the starkness of death, which you spoke about, and especially close to the time when things had happened to
yeah,
in your
it
personal
was very
life,
strange.
that you were
Yeah.
talking about your personal life and your loss, your parents. And um, I mean, Mirabai, Sri Chaitanya, Lalleshwari is to say even a breath in which Shiv is not there is wasted. So they could find God even in a single breath. हम तो breathe कर रहे हैं but we don't find any wonder in it. अब लल्लेश्वरी के लिए तो एक breath भी एक प्रसाद है. तो आपको you've reflected the words of the conversation in the Katha Upanishad between Yamraj, Dharamraj actually, what he's called, and Nachiketa, is all about the facticity of death. Okay? And through death, the greatest learning. So death is the greatest teacher in a way, right? That is the concept of our Mahakal. That is our concept of Kali. That is our concept of the Lord in that aspect, where life and death are also like day and night. And then the sun can rise again. So it's that beautiful essence which had to be born in you. In fact, you'd be surprised, Chandana, which, the Gautam Buddha used to make his new disciples go to the cemetery and observe. So that was the real learning. वहाँ पे असली learning होती है.
That's
In our
amazing.
tantric traditions, the learning happens through the facticity of mrityu.
And that's something I really experienced.
You experienced it,
without
and that was a
knowing it.
transformative factor in your life.
Yeah, for sure.
Otherwise, I mean, on one side is the other part of religion, but this is the essence of it, I would say.
Yeah,
The actual facts of life, and death is the greatest teacher.
no doubt. Thank you for such an amazing conversation, Pranay, because I think that, we've delved into so many different areas, and also how these factors help us to become more of ourselves, more true to ourselves. I should say, help us connect to our authentic self. And I thank you so much for sharing so many different dimensions, because, sometimes we think there's only one answer, but actually it's a journey, and it's a journey we take according to our true spirits, our persona of whoever we authentically are. And when you've shared such a diverse sort of spectrum, that's been really quite incredible. And the most admirable thing, in very simple and connectable language. On a parting note, is there any one particular mantra or teaching that you live by, that you feel is the most meaningful to you?
You've asked me a very poignantly personal question, and something I must answer through a small reading through my book on Adi Shankaracharya. There are two teachings I'd like to talk about which are very meaningful to me. The first teaching is from his famous composition, the Nirvana Shatakam, which is also called the Atma Shatakam. And he says, Adi Shankaracharya says, I am neither mind, nor intellect, nor ego. I am neither the body, nor the changes that the body undergoes. I am neither the sense of hearing, nor that of taste, smell, or sight. I am neither earth, nor water, fire, or air. I am existence absolute, knowledge absolute, bliss absolute. Neither virtue nor vice am I. No pleasure, no pain. I am pure consciousness and bliss. I am Shiva Shivoham, Shivoham. So this is the Shivoham. When you get your identity with the highest. Not that we are literally Shiva, but we carry the aspect of the Lord. Like it is said, Aham Brahmasmi, right? In the Upanishads, the Mahavakyas. Or Pragyanam Brahma, Aham Brahmasmi. They didn't mean it literally that it's an egoistic way to say we are God. No. But we have that godliness within us. So I think this is a great realization in our Sanatan tradition. And the second teaching, which I feel Adi Shankaracharya really has, the beauty about Adi Shankaracharya, he taught so many paths, right? So in his famous Bhaj Govindam, right, he tells us, praise the Lord's name, you fool. When it is time to leave this body, the repetition of rules will not save you. Satisfy your mind by reflecting that nothing was gained by past actions. Don't be deluded. Life is as fleeting as a dewdrop on the lotus. Attachments last only as long as you can earn. As long as we are breathing, so long are people concerned about us. Once breath and body are destroyed, even those attached to one feel dread through one's corpse. As children, we are attached to play. As youth, to the opposite sex. As older people, we are attached to anxiety. but no one is attached to the Supreme. Who are your wife, family, son? Who are you in real? Reflect on that. Through good company comes non attachment. Never be proud of your riches, of your youth. Time destroys all things. Leave the illusion of the material world and enter the state of Brahman's realization. Night follows day, dawn follows darkness, spring follows winter continually. This is time's sport. Life is ephemeral. Knowing this, leave desires. Don't worry too much. The body has become weak, etc. Still, desires remain. You can go on pilgrimages, etc. You can live below trees, but you can practice yoga, you can find joy in the senses. But if you find essence of truth through the Bhagavad Gita, through the worship of the Lord, who he calls Murari, Krishna, then you'll never fear death. Then the cycle of births and deaths will go. Who are you? Reflect on that. Who are your parents? Leave aside the material world. Concentrate on the Lord. Concentrate on the question, who am I? And he says in this, recite and sing the Bhagavad Gita and the 1,000 names of the Lord, the Sahasranam. Meditate on Vishnu, the consort of Lakshmi. So he says really in essence to keep your mind on the Lord and become devoted to the spiritual guru, become liberated. Through sense control and mind control, you attain the Lord within your heart. So is in essence the Lord within your heart, where the light of the Lord dwells. And as we say, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I think the essence of Bhakti Yoga also lies here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pranay, for this, for all your wonderful insights and leading us into another dimension of how you can access your spirituality and authentic self in order to aid your creativity. Thank you so much for being on the Creativity Dialogues.
It's been a beautiful pleasure.